Hello my brothers and sisters of the Order, I am Celtic Templar, and welcome back to another History and Firearms video. And for this video, we're actually going to be taking a look at the odd duckling of none other than Lieutenant Evelyn Owen, and that is the Owen submachine gun. Now this is pretty much one of the weirdest odd ducklings out there for submachine guns. Now, we've actually seen some weird guns out there, but this couldn't take the cake. But this gun is incredibly badass for one major reason. I'll get to that very shortly. Now, let's actually talk about Evelyn Owen. His original gun, this wasn't his original. His original looked more of like a revolver Thompson, I guess you can call it that. So, yeah. And it only fired 22. But the thing is, the Australian military wanted a gun that was a submachine gun, not whatever the hell this thing is. And Australian military wasn't a big fan on small caliber bullets. And you gotta admit though, for his first try, this one was pretty good. But the thing is, though, a couple of months later, he later on, joined the Australian military, and while training, it's actually stated that his own employer of the, manufacturing company of Lafayette's Works actually, manufactured these guns. And in fact, it's actually stated that the owner of the group had actually asked Owen to be part of his, design corps, and in which Owen agreed and got a great job out of it. In doing so, it's actually stated that the Owen gun is pretty much, it was produced from 1942 to 1944. Its number built over those years was over 45,000. That is a lot. So that's a lot of Owen guns. And in doing so, these guns were designed from 1931 to 1939. And these guns, though, were incredible to their form, but in which it's actually stated that Owen actually had to make sure that these guns were correctly built in a type of way and manner. Now, the Owen SMG is pretty much what they call a blowback action open bolt system, in which its cog and handle is the very far rear end, which is kind of a weird design to it, but you gotta admit that was probably a good thing about it. Now, it technically fires the 9x19 millimeter Parabellum, in of which this is actually somewhat of the same round that fires from the British Sten gun. And as well, this gun in general weighs around, I want to say, 4.3 or 4.23 kilograms, and in which, if none of y'all know what that is in pounds, it's 9.33 pounds with no magazine. But when it's loaded, it's around 10 pounds and 10.7 pounds, I want to say. And as well, it's, kilograms is 4.86 kilograms, which actually is a good thing about it. Now, its length is 32 inches, which that's actually surprisingly somewhat good for its design. And the barrel length is actually 9.84 inches. I'm trying to put this in from the meters and such, so it's kind of a little confusing. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good gun, and its rounds, it fires technically around 700 rounds a minute. That is actually an incredible form. 700 rounds is impressive, and it's actually like around 1,200 feet per second, which is actually a really good design. And as well, its effective range is 135 yards, and its maximum range is around 220 yards. Now, that's actually impressive also. And its magazine fires 33, or chambers 33 9mm rounds. Now, these rounds in general, I pretty much hear a lot of y'all already. Templar, why did they invent this crap of a gun? You may call it crap, but it's actually probably the most coolest SMG out there. And for many of my Australian fans, if you own one of these guns, here's what you should pretty much do with the gun. Don't destroy this point in history, because this gun is really awesome, because this gun might have actually saved many Aussie lives, because it's actually stated that this gun replaced the British Sten gun and the American Thompson, that of which the Australian military were using to combat against the Japanese. in which the Australian military wanted a gun of their own, seen as though many other countries were always starting to make one. So they pretty much asked their allies if they could take both the Thompson and Sten gun and use them in their military. They agreed. In doing so, America, I think, loaned them at least 3,000 to 4,000 Tommy guns or Thompson submachine guns. And in doing so, yeah. Britain, I'm not too certain because it's a little mixed. It's somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000, so we're not certain on that either. But the thing is, though, yeah, this one actually gets a real hard part for the British and American forces because of the fact the Sten gun was too damn cheap. Reason being is that the fact that the Sten gun was too damn cheap, I might need to make a video on that later, is the fact that the Sten gun is so cheap because of the way it's manufactured. It could break, and as well, if you hold it wrong, the gun won't fire, and it will also jam or double feed. Another thing, due to the fact of the, well, Southeast Asia jungles and such, and mud and all that, guess what? The Thompson needed to be cleaned a lot more. And in doing so, the gun had a major drawback because of it. In doing so, that was a major problem, and the Australian military wanted to design a new gun. And they designed this beauty. Now, the reason I say this beauty is because it may look ugly, but that is the greatest part about it. Because of the fact of that magazine on top, guess what? The bullets go downward when you fire. In other words, say I'm firing the gun right now. I'm pulling the trigger, bullets are just going downward. They're not going to the side. And the best part about it, I can go prone and literally, I don't need to worry about the fact that the magazine is causing me not to get a good form of elevation or such, so it's not messing around with my gun, which I like that in general. In fact, that's why the Australian military loved it. And as well, they put this thing through a brutal torture test with mud, water, and sand. Literally the same gun. In fact, I'll leave a link down below in the description if any of y'all want to see on the historical news script that they actually showed, which is kind of awesome. And the Australian military loved this thing. Now, we can understand why, because this design gun was perfect for the Australians. The only thing I don't like about this is the fixed iron sights, which are on the right side, which make it perfect for a left-handed guy. But if I'm a right-handed, I gotta switch over like this. But in truth, it would still technically work. Now, actually, this is why the Australians loved it, and you would think that the iron sights on the far right side would be a problem. Here's the thing, they weren't. Because of the fact, these were fixed iron sights, and in truth, you just gotta pretty much level up on where your bullets are going and just start shooting. Which is why the Australians loved it. Now, we can understand why these guns were so widely used now. And is which the Australian Military Corps took the design from both the Thompson and the Sten gun. And in doing so, they designed it with the cheap manufacturing of a Sten gun, but yet the durability of a Thompson. So that's saying of how great this gun was. So in doing so, they took two guns and put them together. Which it kind of is not uncommon to see that, because in truth this is very common to actually see this in history. For example, the Soviet Union did that with their own firearm, the PPS 42 or 43 I want to say, and it was a mixture between the German MP40 and the Soviet manufactured Papasha or PPSH 41. However, this one, on the other hand, was used by the Australians, and the Australians actually showed immense, well, vigor with this gun. In fact, it's actually stated that one can hip fire like nothing before, and you don't need to worry about the fact that you're technically not going to hit your target, or the fact that this gun might jam. And it's which, due to its design, it's stated that it can't get caught on anything, and you could easily just, well, walk with this and start shooting. The Japanese even called these soldiers that use this gun, they called them brush shooters, as they were stated to actually use the gun as though it's a brushing formation. In other words, you can easily use the 33 rounds and you can actually brush away the said foliage, and as which Japanese soldiers that were hiding in the area were technically dead. Which, that was probably the reason why the Japanese feared this gun. Now, I kind of like the fact that it was nicknamed the brush gun because it kind of sounds a little awesome. So yeah. Now, I've actually seen many people do videos on this gun, on how you dismantle it and such, and how you fire it. So I'll leave links down below if any of y'all want to see them. Now, what we have to understand though is the fact that these firearms were generally used. In truth, actually, 7 countries, not including Australia, it actually fired and used these guns, and including also the fact they were used in around 6 conflicts, from pretty much the World War II to the Bush War in Africa, which actually makes sense. Now, we can understand though, I want to say pretty much part of this is that these conflicts of which these guns were used in were incredibly devastating. But we had to understand that the gun itself also, it came in the form spraying tan like this. In other words, these were factory spray painted. And any people, like anybody that has a gun that has this spray tan, don't remove it. This is part of history. Do not remove it. They literally did this on purpose so that way it could stay in a camouflage design for the jungle, which was pretty awesome. Now that's actually why I love these things. These things look beautiful. I don't know, I like the camouflage color a little more than I do the black a little. I guess it's just me. But now, many of you might wonder, Templar, is the Owen SMG that great of a submachine gun? Well, seeing as though it survived 3 tests from sand, water, and mud, you got to admit that is probably the best damn thing you could actually get your hands on. And here's the thing. The Australian soldiers loved it so much they demanded their officers to have these guns rather than rely on foreign firearms. And the weird thing is though, about these guns also is the fact that the mag release is on the magazines, not with the gun itself, which is a weird design, but I'll let Forgotten Weapons talk about that a little bit more in detail, because this is still pretty much one of my favorite SMGs for the Allies, well, somewhat, because in general, I do love the design of it, of how it's technically nicknamed a brush gun, and the Japanese feared it so much. Now, it's actually stated that the Indonesians, Chinese, and such somehow got their hands on these. I don't know how. China got its hands on it. So, yeah. However, it was used in Vietnam, in which it's actually stated the Australian Military Corps had used it perfectly in the type of conflict of World War II and as well Korea and Vietnam. And the incredible part is, they used it in such a manner that the gun was still being used so long into the 1970s, which most submachine guns at that time were now being replaced during the time of World War II, especially from many allied countries, like with Great Britain and the United States, who of which had switched their weapons later on in time. But we can pretty much view how it would be in back then. Now, if any of y'all want more information on it, I would love to actually talk more about it if you need me to do any such. In fact, I am hopefully going to try and find a guy that owns it here in Texas. Well, at least owns one here in Texas, because I do want to see how great this gun is. Because I've never fired one of these things, so I would actually like to see how great these things are as much as y'all. But yeah, Australia, y'all made probably the most badass SMG out there for the American Allies during World War II, and it saved countless Australian lives. So we can pretty much see why Australia switched their original gun. Now, I do hate the fact of how many idiots accidentally nicknamed this a Bren submachine gun, which I don't know why they call it that, because that's because the magazine is on top. Yeah. However, it is stated though the magazine design was inspired by Bren, but it was not entirely the same thing. And I do have to put this out here, some of these guns were even known to actually place a bayonet or including a suppressor on the very end of the muzzle, which is kind of a cool thing. Now, the sad part is we don't see much of these guns in video games or movies. I have only heard it being used in the video game Rising Storm Vietnam, so yeah. However, we have to understand the fact that these guns were incredibly used perfectly by the Aussie military. I don't know if that's a little offensive or not. I'm just saying that because technically you gotta admit Aussie was the American term for the soldiers at the time. So yeah. And as well, Aussie soldiers in Vietnam were actually stated to use the submachine gun the same way they had used in World War II, especially known as a brush design. They just use short bursts, then go into full burst as soon as NVA or Viet Cong were to open up. And the really cool part about this gun, its original design was somewhat to be full burst and 3-round burst, but then they switched to semi-auto and full burst. So reason probably was to not waste so much ammo and to pretty much use the same brush-like strokes, which was probably the coolest thing ever. Now, even though it's still ugly, I still say it's an ugly little bastard, but you gotta admit, it's probably the coolest, ugliest little bastard. So, yeah, to many of my Australian viewers, you pretty much got a good gun. And pretty much, if you have one of these, don't ruin it. Don't paint it black. Don't get rid of the old design colorization of its camo color, because that's what it was meant to look like. In which, these guns are beautiful enough, and it was because of them that America technically had allies winning World War II with them. Otherwise, the Australian military might have gotten their butts kicked. Now, I have seen Armchair Historian have a video on the Australian Military Corps, of which when they were fighting in World War II. So I'll leave a link down there also in the description, as well as Forgotten Weapons and a couple of other videos on this gun, especially also at firing, and as well the full video clip on the original news clip of when it was originally fired. Which, you gotta admit, this gun will pretty much probably be the best thing if you got a hands on it. But major problem is, not many of these guns are still out there actually, because I've actually heard some idiots out there end up scrapping it or ruining the gun somehow, or breaking them and making them to whatever God knows what. So yeah, I'm not even going to try and figure out what the hell they did to them, so yeah, I'd rather not. But yeah, anyways guys, hopefully you liked this video, and let me know in the comments below if you want me to cover any type of firearm in history. If you guys, any of y'all wanted me to cover, like, say, another Australian firearm, please let me know in the comments below, or an American gun, or British, or any type of gun in history. And please let me know in the comments. As well guys, hopefully you can also like and subscribe, and check out more on our Facebook, and click that bell button for notifications. Anyways guys, it's been Templar. Have a great day.